Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Ask Anything presented by Mosier Consulting. I'm your host, Angel Leon, Mosier's Director of Personnel. We're glad you're with us for episode 6 of Ask Anything today, and with us is one of Mosier's team managers for our analytics department within our data and analytics division, Rick Clemons. Rick is an experienced BI professional with a background in customer service and marketing. Rick specializes in streamlining tasks to improve department workflow and increase efficiencies with a strong focus on data analysis using various BI tools and Python. Rick is also the co-founder of Techucate. Techucate's purpose is to promote technical education through means of easy-to-learn coursework that encourages innovation and inspiration for the empowerment of the Indianapolis community of tech-focused learners, with a focus on increasing technical programs that target Black and Brown communities. Rick is here today to talk to us about the benefits of a STEM summer camp for your child. Summer is coming up, so I know this is in the minds of a lot of parents. So Rick, it's a pleasure to have you here on Ask Anything to talk about such an interesting topic. As I mentioned, summer feels like it's right around the corner, so this topic is probably in the minds of a lot of parents like myself. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks again for being with us. So let's start with the organization you work with. And I'm sure I'm going to botch this, but Techucate, what can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so Techucate, it's a program I developed with my co-founder, Calvin Jones. What we do is we focus on introducing technology, whether that be robotics, code, Arduino, many different introductory level things to a lot of kids during the summer, keep them active.
That sounds really cool. I mean, for somebody who went to camp when he was younger and not have any STEM, that sounds like a lot of interesting things. I know that my 7-year-old would probably definitely, I mean, he's still too young, but my 18-year-old will definitely benefit from this. So different, like I was saying, different than your normal summer camp. This obviously is in line with the STEM education, which is one of the most popular educational styles right now. What can you tell us about the initiatives of the camp and what's done with the children?
Yes, so really this kind of started, I went to, space camp when I was a kid. I think I was like 7-year-old. I went to my first space camp. It was great. We had space ice cream. We learned how to make, airplanes out of straws and different types of things. So I've always really been, techie. I had like the chemistry kits and I would take apart washers and dryers with little motors. And so I've always been a dabbler into tech. And my son actually, he's 5 and he was watching Home Alone and he saw the remote control car and the little gadgets. And we decided to get him a little kit and start. And youth development's just really important, and we don't see a ton of it. We see it's really growing in sports. You have all these private coaches in baseball and things, but we haven't seen a huge growth in the STEM area. But it is more and more common. The ages are getting younger. So the goal here is to really introduce, electricity, Arduino, and give these very high level concepts so it's not so out of scope and out of reach for people once they get older. You can start at a young age and really start to introduce these concepts.
This is very interesting. I mean, I want to go back to what you said about camp. I'm speechless because when I was growing up, I mean, everything I had was just sports camp, like you mentioned.
Yep.
And not that there's anything wrong with that. Obviously, if you're growing up and sports are interest to you, then that's great. But we need to have a more diverse offerings for the kids, because not everything is about sports. Not everything is about, I hate to say it, band camp. I'm sorry for those of you who love band camp.
I was gonna say, I wanted to go to space camp when I was a kid, especially after I saw the movie that was literally named Space Camp. I can't remember the actress who was like one of the main characters. I think she wound up playing Marty McFly's mom in Back to the Future, but I cannot remember. I can't remember her name, but
yeah,
good one for your 5-year-old, I think.
We'll have to check that one out, add it to the list.
Yes, it's literally called Space Camp.
Yeah, so growing up in Puerto Rico, we didn't have anything similar to space camp. I mean, I think the only thing I could say that would topple that is just beach camp. I mean, we basically spent, days after days on the beach. So I don't know. Space camp does sound a lot interesting than staying on the beach and getting sunburned every day. So, But so I understand that your main focus with Techucate is 5th through 9th grade kids, which are honestly, that's a great age for kids to start learning STEM. Focusing on the older kids, though, so basically the 9th graders, how does this help them become more in love with STEM as they see that finish line of high school?
Yes. So really introducing this to kids, it's hard because if you're not exposed to this, whether you have parents or siblings or someone it's kind of out of reach. You just see these crazy, I need to know math and I need to be this genius. And it really seems out of reach. So introducing this to those freshmen, sophomore, juniors before they're entering into their, whether it be college, post-secondary, boot camp, really kind of gives them encouragement and hope that they actually have already been exposed to this and it's not as complex as it may seem, and it's not out of reach. So it's kind of this momentum to continue down this journey and really dig into this potential career path.
Well, and you're starting them off. We mentioned 5th grade. Obviously, the hope is that you get a kid that's that young, and then they come back. I don't know all the specifics, but maybe have them through their own school, have them go through STEM, then come back the next summer, and so on and so forth. So by the time they get to 9th grade, you're hoping that brain has just been like a sponge. Mm-hmm. They're basically immersed in STEM. And so after that 9th grade summer, then they go into 10th grade, as a sophomore in high school. Now you start thinking, wait, maybe this is something that I want to do with my life in the future. So I think it's a great age to start them. But before we were talking about this, you mentioned that you had received some requests for younger children as well.
Yes, I was very surprised. So a few schools and programs have reached out and actually have asked for us to come up with curriculums to develop as young as 6 years old. Wow. And, that was incredible to see that. But when you think about today's, the younger generation, they are catching on so much quicker. It's incredible. You'll see, what was a pro athlete, when they were 19, now a 7 or 8 year old has those same skills. And I believe that's happening in education as well, just because of the access to resources. So being able to develop programs and expose, younger kids as young as 6 years old, it changes the landscape of what our future looks like entirely, because the way they think and their creativity and the way they can actually explore these concepts is completely different than, when you start doing stuff a little bit later in life and you kind of have this boxed in theory about what's possible.
Well, I was going to say real quick, my son is 7, and this is something that actually happened last night. I was reading him a book. I had him and my 4-month-old son in bed. And so I'm reading him a book, and it's about space. It's about the planets, the sun, and all that. And on a whim, he just basically mentioned all the planets near our sun, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I'm like, whoa, like you're 7 and you already know. I can't even remember what's the closest planet to the sun. Like if you ask me right now that question, I'll be like, I don't know. So I only remember that Earth is the 3rd rock from the sun. So because
see, I can do them because I remember my very educated mother just served us 9 pizzas. But since they deplanetized Pluto,
yeah, poor Pluto.
now it's my very educated mother just served us nachos, I think is what they do.
Yeah, poor Pluto. I feel for Pluto.
I still recognize it.
Yeah, and it's funny because you say that, but my son said the same thing last night. He's like, I still think it's a planet. And he's 7. So to your point, Rick, you're right. Kids these days, they're more connected. They learn different than we used to. I mean,
it's exposure and access.
Yes.
Yes. It's just computers and technology is everywhere now, and it's easily accessible, where I used to have to, not to show my age, reserve 30 minutes on the Apple II that was in my school's library. And that 30 minutes was spent playing Oregon Trail.
I'm not gonna say anything to that because I may or may not have done the same thing. But so here we are. So it is interesting because kids, like Brian was saying, they do have access to a lot of things that some of us didn't have. That honestly, the things that you're doing, Rick, those items were only just for the schools, the school science club, or, that the school lab. So only the kids that wanted to do that had access to that. But nowadays it's like you grab your own iPad and you can start, messing around with a whole lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the great things is, with the access we have, especially online programs, you can take a physical concept in this digital world, build it, and then actually do it right next to it. So we use a program called Tinkercad, and it's amazing. It allows us to pull in batteries and LEDs and a whole bunch of different components and actually build it. And it shows you when you do it right, when you do it wrong, and what would actually happen without it happening in real life. So you're able to kind of grow a lot more without some of the risks, right? You don't have to go worry about. So when I was younger, I was very exploratory, and like I said, I would plug motors in, and I remember, I think my dad had a heart attack. I think I was 9, and I had this motor from a dryer that I took apart, and my dad would give me these big old batteries from a lawnmower or something. I'll play with them, and it just wasn't working. So I was like, I need more power. I took the 2 wires and straight to the wall. Boom. I put him in the wall. Now I let go, and that was just this big blue ball of electricity. I was like, Dad, look at this awesome ball. And he's like, you could just see him snatch me. He's like, because I have this ball of electricity just in my room. And that's like you look back at it like that could have been really bad.
Yeah. That day. Yeah.
That could have been a really bad day. But when you take things like Tinkercad, we can experience and expose kids to what would happen if we are not calculating certain things right without the risk of, frying, no new hairstyles.
Right.
So,
or, not just making something up that didn't actually happen, accidentally setting your parents' shed on fire. Again, not something that actually happened.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that tool, Rick, because all I can think about is that image from those kids, those of us who are a little bit older that went to the lab at school. We had the white coats and we had the little tubes, and we were trying to mix stuff in, and they just blow up in our faces. So it's kind of nice that kids these days don't have to go through that.
yes.
Yeah, virtual safety goggles
Yes.
are safer than actual safety goggles. Yeah.
So Rick, real quick. So where do you find attendees for the camps? How do you get the kids in your camp?
Yes. So fortunately, we started off with a group that kind of inquired with us. It was 100 Black men. They're a group in Indianapolis. They wanted to have a program. So we started a program with them, and they've absolutely loved it. Since then, kind of the word has spread to other programs, and other schools and programs have honestly just reached out. So we haven't necessarily had to go find any groups. As we grow, we think we will start hosting our own. But right now, we're really focused on schools and programs that are looking to add to their curriculum, to their summers, to their spring breaks, and hosting this with the students they already have.
Have you had any contact with Rose Holman or specifically Dr. Carlotta Berry? She was a guest on the first season of the podcast, and it was a great episode. She was a phenomenal guest and very, very good at what she does.
I have not yet, but I would love to get in contact with her.
Okay, we might be able to make an introduction.
Yeah, obviously she runs her STEM department at Rose Holman, and she is phenomenal. She knows a lot, and she can definitely talk robotics with you all day long. I'm just going to tell you, if you haven't listened to that episode, she names her robots. So Rick, where could parents find more information on the camps?
Yeah, so our website is techucate.education. It's spelled kind of how it sounds. So TECHUCATE.education. We have a lot of information there. There's a form, but you can also send me an email at rick.clemons, which is spelled CLEMONS, at techucate.education as well.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Rick. This has been a great conversation. And folks, if you're interested in having your son or daughter attend a great STEM camp, please look up techucate.education and connect with Rick and the great folks there, because they're doing fantastic work right now. So thanks, Rick.
Awesome. I appreciate being here.
We'd like to thank Rick Clemons for joining us this week to talk about STEM summer camps for your kids. Ask You Anything will be back next week with another episode, continuing to dive deeper with our resident experts and what they're currently working on. If you have an idea or a topic you'd like us to explore, please reach out to us through our social media channels. In the meantime, please remember to give us a rating and subscribe to our feed wherever you get your podcasts. Until then, we hope you have a stimulating week. So long, everybody.